going on, guys? So today we're going to be taking a look at the Colossus and Juggernaut 2-pack from the Marvel Legends 80 Years series. Now, as you can see, there are quite a few accessories that are included with Juggernaut, and Colossus has 2 extra hands with them. So we're going to have a lot to go over, and in this review I'm going to do something a little bit different and compare them to the Marvel Select versions. And the reason I'm doing that is because I already had the Marvel Select version of Colossus and Juggernaut, and so this was a 2-pack that I was kind of debating on whether or not to get. So getting them out of the box, going over the articulation, and then comparing them to the Marvel Select version, I think will help some people determine whether or not they want to go with this 2-pack or go with the Marvel Select version. So with that said, let's go ahead and get them out of the box and take a look. Okay, so this 2-pack is based on the all-new, all-different X-Men issue number 102, where Colossus and Juggernaut fight. And like I mentioned, they do come with accessories. Colossus comes with 2 additional hands, which are fisted. The default hands that come on him are the ones that are open. Juggernaut also comes with default 2 fisted hands, and then he has the alternate hands that are open. And he also includes an extra head and a damaged headpiece that you can put on top of this head. The default head that comes on him, you cannot remove the helmet from that. So there are a few different ways that you can pose him, and we'll get into that as we take a closer look at the figure. So let's go ahead and start with Colossus, take a look at his articulation and how he scales against other X-Men figures. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is get a sense of the scale of these figures. And so I have Cyclops, Kingpin, Colossus, the Incredible Hulk, and Juggernaut. Now, starting with Cyclops, Cyclops is listed at 6'3". The Kingpin is listed at 6'7". Colossus, when he's transformed, is listed at 7'5". The Incredible Hulk is listed at 7'6". And the Juggernaut is listed at 9'5". Now, taking a step back for a moment to Colossus and the Hulk, once again, Colossus is listed as 7'5", and the Hulk is listed at 7'6", which is only a 1-inch difference, but as you can see, they don't scale properly. Juggernaut being 9'5", the Hulk being 7'6", you can see they don't scale properly either. So proportion-wise, we have a bit of an issue already, but let's go ahead and see what happens when we swap out Colossus and Juggernaut with the Marvel Select versions and see if they scale any differently. Okay, so now we swapped in the Marvel Select versions of Colossus and the Juggernaut, and as you can see, Colossus at 7'5" and the Hulk being 7'6", they scale more appropriately. Colossus is just slightly shorter than this version of the Hulk. The Kingpin, once again, being 6'7", still, I think, scales very well with this version of Colossus. Juggernaut being 9'5", I think he could still be as taller, but he is still taller than the Marvel Legends version. So I think in terms of scaling, your Marvel Select figures are going to scale more appropriately in this Marvel Legends lineup. The Marvel Select figures are also going to get more shading and more detail in them, although typically anyway you will get less articulation, but we'll take a look at that as we go through each individual figure. But I just kind of wanted to set the stage as to why I initially intended on passing on this Marvel Legends 2-pack. So now let's go ahead and get back to the heart of the video and take a look at Colossus. Okay, and so here we have Colossus, and like I said, he comes with the 2 additional fists. I'll get some pictures of him with the hands swapped out. For now, I want to start with articulation. You're going to be able to get his head up this far, which is pretty high, down that far, looking pretty much straight down. His arms are going to feature bicep swivel, a single jointed elbow, wrist swivel, and pivot. For his legs, you're going to get thigh swivel, double jointed knees, and ankle pivot. Ab crunch is going to allow him to lean back this far, forward this much, and he also features waist swivel as well. So you can get his arms pretty much all the way up. You do have to work a little bit around his suit right there, although it is pliable enough so it doesn't interfere too much. Same thing with the belt. It doesn't interfere with the waist swivel at all. Okay, so next to the Marvel Select version, you'll see that the Marvel Legends version has a shinier appearance to the armor. One thing to note too is the belts. While similar, the Marvel Legends version has a circular belt and the Marvel Select version has a squared off belt. They both feature similar boots, although the one on the Marvel Legends figure flares out a little bit more than the Marvel Select version does. So in terms of articulation, the Marvel Select version pretty much has the same features as the Marvel Legends version with his arms. Bicep swivel, single jointed elbow, and wrist swivel and pivot. Instead of using ab crunch on the Marvel Select version, they have torso swivel and pivot, and he does not turn at the waist. So on the Marvel Select version, he doesn't have the same type of thigh swivel. So he swivels up here a lot higher on the thigh, as opposed to the little cut that the Marvel Legends figure uses. He does have double jointed knees and ankle pivot, as well as boot swivel. The boot swivel being something that the Marvel Legends version does not have. This version of Cyclops does not come with alternate hands. One thing to note too with the Marvel Select version is you get less head articulation. You're not going to be able to get him looking up and down as far. You can get him looking side to side, however, though. And like I said, the torso pivot and swivel allows you to get him back just a little bit. He's pretty much straight, and then you can get him leaning forward a little bit. So again, this is for informational purposes, not trying to sway you away from the Marvel Legends version, but just showing you an alternative that you may want to consider. In terms of articulation, I'll have to give it to the Marvel Legends figure just because the head has more mobility. The ab crunch allows him to lean back further and a lot more forward. And he also comes with 2 additional hands. So I think those are the benefits. Now the Marvel Select version of Colossus does come with an accessory, but it's just like a piece of metal, mainly used for like a prop in the background or something like that. In terms of height accuracy and shading, I have to go with the Marvel Select version, obviously. So which figure you choose is entirely up to you. Both of them I think will fit well into your collection. I don't think you'll go wrong either way, but if you're looking for height accuracy and you're not so much concerned about an articulation, then the Marvel Select is one that you may want to consider. Now let's go ahead and move on to Juggernaut. Alright, so the Juggernaut in my opinion is the star of this 2-pack. And it's for one reason primarily, and that's the battle damaged helmet as well as the alternate head that you get there. He does also include 2 additional hands, so you can swap those out if you want to have them grabbing something. So now let's take a look at articulation. Now this is the only Juggernaut figure that I have from the Marvel Legends line. So I know they did a Build-A-Figure version of Juggernaut, so I would have liked to have compared him to that, but since I don't have him, I'll just have to take a look at this and use the Marvel Select version to compare him against. So looking at articulation, you're going to be able to get him turning his head side to side. You get a little bit of up and down motion, and it's kind of wobbly, so it kind of just swings around like that, but you can get him turning his head. This is what the default head looks like when you take it off. So you can see what I'm talking about there, where it looks like it's kind of pegged in. It may even be glued in there, but whatever the case, it's in there tight enough for me not to keep messing with it because I don't think it's supposed to come off. For his arms, you're going to get bicep swivel, a single jointed elbow, and you get the wrist pivot and swivel. Because his arms are so bulky, it's like it, you know, you can get some motion out of them, but because they're so bulky, it tends to kind of hinder the articulation to some extent. These pieces here do go up and down on his arms as well. I believe on the wrist as well, although these are kind of tight, so you're not really going to be able to move those too much. The ones on his hand are molded in though. Now he does have ab crunch, so you'll be able to get him down this far. You'll be able to get him back this far, which is pretty much straight up. It's not really leaning back. He does have waist swivel, so you can get him turning side to side. And for his leg, he has upper thigh swivel, reminiscent of what I was showing with the Marvel Select Colossus figure. So it's not a lower, it's a higher cut thigh swivel. Single jointed knee, and he does feature ankle pivot. So here's Juggernaut with the alternate hands and head on, and you'll be able to get his head back looking up this far, looking down pretty much all the way. And I'll pop his head off here just to kind of show you the joint that it's using here. And the joint itself has a lot of flexibility. It's just that the head tends to get in the way. Okay, now for the battle damage piece here, if you can see inside, it has little ridges there that'll help keep it stabilized on his head, but it doesn't plug in or anything like that. So you're just going to pretty much set it on his head like that. And if you want, you could probably take some heat to this and use some cold water and get this piece here to sit down a little bit further. But that's how he looks with the battle damaged helmet on. So now let's go ahead and take a look at Juggernaut next to the Marvel Select version. Okay, so once again, you can see the two versions of Juggernaut side by side. The Marvel Select version of Juggernaut, one thing to note is he does not have the wrist swivel or pivot, so his forearm into his wrist are all one piece. So what that means is that you're only going to be able to get him moving this arm like that. You do have the bicep swivel, so you'll be able to get it turned, but you do not have the wrist swivel and pivot that you do with the Marvel Legends version. You also don't have ab crunch with this figure or waist swivel. You only have upper torso swivel and very limited pivoting. His head turns pretty well to the side, so that's one good thing. For the legs, they're pretty similar. They feature that kind of upper thighs swivel, single jointed knees, and ankle pivot. Neither one of these figures has boot swivel, so their legs are pretty much the same there. So the big differences you're going to see are in the coloring. This Marvel Select version obviously has a much darker hue to it. He has more detail in the bands on his arms. But the big thing, like I said, is just articulation. So once again, and this is a common theme among Marvel Select versus Marvel Legends, Marvel Select, you're going to usually get more detail, more Art Deco in terms of shading, but less articulation, and such is the case here. If they would have made this Juggernaut slightly taller, I think that would have made the figure a lot better. Adding in some shading also would have helped, but you know, so at this point it just comes down to what your preference is. In my case, I tend not to, do a whole lot of posing and things of that nature with my figure, so this Juggernaut serves me just fine. I do like the battle damaged helmet on this version, but it comes down to personal preference and just showing you guys what options you have out there. I like the bigger boots on this version of Juggernaut as well. I think he just looks more massive. I don't think you can make Juggernaut big enough, in my opinion. I mean, the guy's over 9 feet tall. So that's pretty much it for the comparison. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, what you prefer. So now let's move on to my final thoughts about the Colossus and Juggernaut Marvel Legends 2-pack. Okay, so what I can say is that this is a very good version of Colossus for the Marvel Legends lineup. I passed on the last figure that they reviewed. I forgot what wave he was in, but I didn't like him. His neck looked too long. He just didn't look right to me. But I do like this version of Colossus. As far as Juggernaut, I think he scales well against Colossus. I think it just becomes a problem when you start matching them up against other figures in the Marvel Legends lineup. In terms of articulation, both of them have good articulation. It's about what you would expect for figures of this size. I love the battle damaged helmet on Juggernaut. The swappable hands are great. So if you're strictly a Marvel Legends collector, I don't think you're going to be disappointed with this 2-pack. If you're looking for different options and you don't mind, mixing in Marvel Select figures, I think that you're going to have a more accurate representation of the characters with the Marvel Select versions. And that's just my opinion. With the Juggernaut, I'm not so sure because of the difference in coloring, but in terms of height, he's definitely going to be more height accurate. But let me know what you guys think. Are you going to go with this 2-pack? Do you think the Marvel Select versions are a decent alternative? I mean, you're going to end up paying roughly about the same amount, maybe even a little bit less for the Marvel Select figures. I haven't checked the pricing recently. If you haven't checked out my series on the Marvel Legends Retro Wave, be sure to give that a look because there's some pretty nice figures in that wave that you may want to check out. So thank you guys for watching. As always, thank you for your support, and I will see you on the next video.